In the last series, we explored the wonder of a man and the psychology of masculinity. Now we turn our attention to the beauty of a woman and the psychology of femininity. Just as the psychology of masculinity helps us explain the wonder of a man, the psychology of femininity will help explain the beauty of a woman. Go figure. Most men readily admit that they don't understand women. In fact, no one has ever been able to explain a woman to a man in a way that he can completely grasp. Even the most famous psychiatrist of all time, Sigmund Freud, he admitted that he couldn't understand women. In fact, rumor has it that he died still wondering what women want. But here's the surprising truth. A woman is not nearly as complicated as her husband believes her to be. What she wants, what she needs, and how she communicates those things are actually pretty consistent. In this series, I'm going to break it down so both men and women can understand it clearly. He will want to memorize the bullet points so he can develop a quick filter, a new framework for understanding her. And as she listens in, she will feel validated and begin to communicate more clearly with her new self-understanding. Because when a man understands what a woman truly wants from him, something remarkable happens. He holds the power to invest her with an absolutely irresistible desire to admire him, adore him, and let him be her hero. Most people, men and women alike, believe that women are more complicated than men. But women are remarkably simple to understand when you have the right framework. In fact, many of the problems a man has with his wife could be solved with very few words and very little effort. Most of the time, the issue is not even what he thinks the issue is. The real problem is how he interprets what he sees. Now, why would I say that? Well, a woman communicates differently than a man does, and that difference alone is what trips him up. Because she's not a man, she's a woman. So let's break the code so he can understand what she truly wants from him. In the process, I will teach her enough about male language to help ensure that the message she's sending is the message he actually receives. Once he understands the psychology of femininity, many of the things that once felt confusing or unpredictable start to make more sense. So let's dive in. First of all, women are simple. That's an overstatement, of course. However, a woman is not nearly as complicated as she seems, especially to her husband. A woman is different from a man by her very nature. It's how she's created. And her husband prefers that difference most of the time. In fact, there's no one he would rather dance through life with than one beautiful woman. You know, of course, that there's a difference between being pretty and being beautiful, so I don't need to explain that distinction here. However, the very things that draw him to her are often the very things that confuse him. In fact, he's probably wondered more than once, why can't a woman be more like a man? But that's not really what he wants. He loves the fact that she's soft and emotionally sensitive and that she's not as big or as strong as he is. But he's also confused that so much depends on how she feels. And she feels a lot. She also uses so many words that he is more likely to get lost than to get the point. He wants to solve problems for her, but that's not always what she wants from him. In fact, she might get angry if he tries, which makes no sense to him at all. He probably doesn't realize just how differently she's been treated her entire life, simply because she's female. From the moment her parents found out she was a girl, she was viewed as sweet and delicate. When another child picked on her as a toddler, her parents moved in quickly to intervene. She received their comfort, understanding, hugs and kisses, and reassurance that she was cared for. Her tears meant something. They helped her communicate that something was wrong. She had verifiable evidence that she mattered. Childhood was a very different experience for her than it was for him. She was probably trained to be a pleaser. At the very least, she learned that nice girls don't come right out and ask for what they want, that they take turns, and that they must always consider how other people might be feeling. So she learned to use a very tentative language, which to him seems unnecessarily vague at best and just plain crazy making at its worst. She knew a girl was her best friend because they shared secrets with one another. Unlike his childhood friendships, which focused on shared activities with a gang of guys, the 2x2 pattern proved to be the best for her. Add a third girl to the equation, and it could become an emotional disaster waiting to happen. That's the opposite of his experience. To him, more guys meant more fun. And as if her tearfulness and vagueness and secret sharing aren't enough, the differences between male and female communication are extensive. You wouldn't think the same English words could hold such different meanings for two people brought up in the same culture, but they do. For example, take Sean and Nicole. They decided to take a day trip from Newport Beach to Solvang on Saturday. They'd been on the road for a couple of hours when Nicole said, "Do you want to stop and get something to eat?" "No," Sean replied, and kept driving. Nicole's feelings were immediately hurt. But why? She asked if he wanted to stop, and he merely answered her question. What's the problem with that? Well, the problem was that he hadn't answered the question she was really asking. If he understood her conversational style, he would have known that what she said was her tentative or feminine way of saying that she was hungry and asking him if he would stop for her. He would have known to counter with, "Sure, we can stop if you like. Are you hungry?" Another reason she might be tentative is because she fears being labeled as needy, which is not a compliment. Yet one more reason could be that she wants to please him, which is the honest explanation for her seemingly wishy-washy reply to his question, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" When she says, "I don't care, wherever you want to go is fine with me," she's either trying not to sound demanding or she's trying to please him. Ironically, that often increases his frustration rather than increasing his pleasure. A slightly less likely reason, more common with a less mature woman, is that she thinks he should already know what she likes. The good news is that the more confident she becomes, the less likely she is to do this. In summary, she's different from him in that so much depends on how she feels. She values conversation for conversation's sake, and much of her self-esteem depends on what she thinks he thinks of her. Not what he actually thinks, but what she thinks he thinks. Yes, his opinion actually matters more than anything. She was raised to be a pleaser, and he is the one person she wants to please the most. She may be afraid that he will leave her if she doesn't. And if he's like most men, he would like to make her happy, if he only knew how. But she unknowingly sets him up to fail by not being specific enough, then becoming upset with him when he doesn't understand. Of course, this description does not fit every man's experience of women. Some women have been lied to enough that they are overtly defensive from the beginning. A woman in this category believes that a man needs to be fixed, managed, and controlled, and it's her job to do it. This is toxic femininity. Sometimes he's convinced she is the woman of his dreams, and somewhere along the way, it feels like she flipped a switch. Explaining what that's about is different on a case-by-case basis. So if that's your current experience, let me know. I'll be happy to help you figure out what's going on. Just book a call with me at drdebismith.com, and the next time I'll talk about what she actually wants from him. Because I know for a fact that most men really are trying very hard to make their wives happy. They're just using the wrong strategy. To recognize the right strategy, he will need a concise framework that explains what she wants from him. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you in the next video.